Obamacare. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Stupid people are ruining America.
The president just wants to take care of you. He just doesn't think you're able to do it for yourself.
There's a very thin line between communism, progressivism, Marxism, socialism.
The empire will strike back.
You still don't know that this was political.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of America Our Way. I am your host, Dustin Hoyt. I'm going to go over some of the top headlines today before we get started. First off, John Kerry has taken it upon himself to pledge even more money to Syria. Now, obviously this is a good humanitarian cause, but we have run into this problem where diplomats start handing out money that Congress has not approved. And they basically make promises and then blame it on Congress if they look bad, because Congress can choose not to hand out that money. And Kerry, quite frankly, has promised a lot of American taxpayer money to Syria. Now, I'm not saying it isn't a just cause, because a lot of these people really desperately need this money. There's millions of refugees pouring into other countries, and it's a real problem. It is. It's one of the humanitarian crises of this decade. So, when John Kerry went out and proposed another $380 million to Syria, it is both a problem and, quite frankly, not a problem. I mean, I'm mixed on this, because so far we have promised $1.7 billion to Syria in humanitarian aid. $1.7 billion is a lot of money. That's nothing to shirk at. $1.7 billion is a huge chunk of change. It's not even 1% of our budget, but it's still a lot of money. You can't shirk it when you start dropping the B word, billions. Now, another top headline we've got today: new documents were released on Benghazi. The Senate released an 80-something page report showing the Pentagon was not prepared for any sort of attack in the Middle East or North Africa in 2012. The White House claimed it beefed security before 9/11 in 2012. That is proving not to be the case. And the New York Times, the paper of ill repute, released its own report in the last week saying the YouTube video, did play a part in the attack, and that Al-Qaeda was not involved in the Benghazi attack. Basically trying to clear up the path for the Hillary campaign trail. Now, the New York Times cannot claim with any reason or logic that this is the case. I mean, in Libya, internet is not even a regular thing. I mean, I grew up overseas. I can tell you the internet over there is screwy. YouTube videos are a luxury more often than not. It's not easy to stream over there in, Saudi Arabia, where I was at. In Libya, it's a lot worse. I mean, it's not like a video of that horrible quality. I don't know how many people of you actually watch this anti-Islam video. It's not like that video is going to make its way to every Muslim in the Middle East. So that was nonsense. And then, of course, the Pentagon report shows that they didn't bother beefing security. And there's a CIA report that came out earlier in 2012. It's all in this Senate report. a CIA brief came out showing that, hey, Al-Qaeda is moving in and taking over in Libya. They're flying Al-Qaeda flags over buildings. This is happening. This is actually happening. So, the idea that they can't or won't or aren't able to make it work, that they beefed security and it just failed, is nonsense. I mean, at least the Senate report is honest, but this New York Times report is disgusting. Like, you've got these reporters coming out saying, oh, well, Hillary Clinton said this, and our independent reporting shows blah, 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 blah. No, sorry, folks. It's not the way it works. The Senate report is obviously more reputable than the New York Times, and every journalist, if you want to call them that, I certainly wouldn't, at the New York Times should be ashamed of themselves after that report. I mean, when your report contradicts the Senate report that comes out that's got CIA briefs and contradicts, messages from the administration, clearly you have done something wrong in your reporting, because the Senate, the Democrat-controlled Senate, is not in the habit of contradicting a Democrat president. That's not how the Senate operates. The fact that it's disagreeing with the original line of company lines, if you will, the boilerplate about the video and extremists, and at this point, what difference does it make? The fact that it disagrees with all that makes it extremely relevant. Now, I'm really excited to see what comes out of this, because there might actually be some retribution. There might actually be somebody held accountable after this report, because you're going to start getting names, I think. I mean, it might be wishful thinking, because it's been years and nobody has been able to get anything done. But it would be nice, and it's a possibility. So that's something I'm holding out for. That I'm still holding on to try and see if we can't get more done on this Benghazi thing, to see if we can't finally get some sort of justice for the guys that died over there. Okay, moving right along, we've got Chris Christie, who's being accused of knowing about the Bridgegate traffic scandal, despite the only evidence being a snarky memo about traffic jams from an aide. The only evidence is a memo that says, "Time to cause traffic problems." The Democrats are saying, oh, well, you should never have done this. Burp, 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 burp. And that's honestly, the rest of it just sounds like that to me, because the only piece of evidence is that memo. The only shred of anything that comes close to controversial is a snarky memo. And the snarky memo lines right up with what the aide said, that it was a Department of Transportation experiment on whatever. I don't know. It seemed kind of ridiculous, but here's the thing. The only evidence is a snarky memo. I don't know about most of you folks at home, but sarcasm, to me, is often a sign of intelligence. And so the fact that a government official was using sarcasm, what I believe to be sarcasm, to make a statement about what they were doing on that bridge, time to cause some traffic jams, makes perfect sense to me. I mean, if I was a government employee and I had to do something really stupid, like close a popular bridge, then I would probably be sarcastic in doing it too. I mean, think about that for a moment. Think about what you would do if you were responsible for implementing a really stupid government action, like shrimp treadmills or duck watching. I don't know. Duck watching and not allowed to hunt. How about that? I mean, there's any score of things that you could count on as stupid projects that impede people. I mean, closing down a bridge that's heavily used and making everybody's life more inconvenient. It's kind of like working for the IRS every day. Just, you're doing a horrible thing with your life. You should probably quit and maybe go live in the woods for a while to reevaluate your position in life. You'd be a little sarcastic too. Especially if you're smart enough to know what you're doing is bad and dumb. So the idea that this whole Christie thing is like, oh, he's punishing this Democrat for not backing him, I don't think so. I mean, why would he expect a Democrat mayor to back him? Why does he care if a Democrat mayor backed him? He's the governor, and he's popular on a national level. There was no question that he was going to win this election, from my mind. I mean, if you just look at his wild popularity, why would he care? I mean, that's like Obama not endorsing him despite giving him a hug. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think it's nonsense. I mean, why would you expect a Democrat to endorse you? You're a Republican. I mean, the whole thing is stupid, and I'm tired of hearing about it on the news until something hard comes out. And, like, you keep hearing, these headlines from CNN and other places, and they're like, oh, new documents have come out and emails showing that they might possibly maybe have known something other than what they said they did yesterday. And that's the whole thing. It is what the Democrats claim the coverage was like on Benghazi from conservative outlets like Fox. With Benghazi, though, people actually died, and it was an avoidable situation of life and death that involved national security. It involves our enemies in the war on terror that we've been fighting for a decade, almost. More than a decade. So, the idea that they're trying to employ this Benghazi tactic, if you will, on Bridgegate, it just goes to show you the arrogance of the lamestream media. It goes to show you how dumb they think people are, because they dismiss all of these scandals with Obama. I mean, the IRS punishing conservative groups, 501c3s, the non-profit groups. You've got Benghazi, and then you've got all of these other things, like right now the deals with Iran. I mean, you've got all of these controversial things that Obama has done in the last 5 years, and they always slough it off. They just turn their nose up at it, and they're like, that's not a story. And then Chris Christie comes along, and his aide sends a snarky memo. And all of a sudden, it's a national freaking headline that people want to speculate about this to wreck Christie. Like, let's be clear, this entire story is speculation on Christie being corrupt. Not facts, not evidence, not a story. Speculation. I mean, every soundbite from an expert is, well, it seems to me Chris Christie might have a problem. Seems and might should not be included in a top story headline. That's not journalism. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's interesting political theater if it holds any water, but thus far it has not held water. And Christie, being the apologist that he is, the rhino that he is immediately kissing the butt of everybody trying to throw him under the bridge. Pun intended.